So here's the deal. We're in the process of decluttering our home like we're moving. Now, whether or not we're moving, we actually really don't know. He's getting ready to deploy, and this house is just too much for me. So we're trying to figure out what to do, our situation. Of course, we don't want to have to move, and we don't want to sell the house and things like that. But we also have to be realistic with what we can mentally manage, financially manage, physically manage. So that is a topic for another day. You know, Manic Monday moving. I don't know. Well, hey, Beaus and Beauties. So today is the long-awaited video regarding marriage. Myth number 1, don't go to bed angry. I go to bed angry. That's just how I do it. So the person who commented, don't go to bed angry, sometimes you really need to sleep to have a constructive discussion instead of an exhausted argument. I hate going to bed angry. This is another person. I'd rather resolve things right away, but it's better sometimes to calm down for a while. I have to agree with those people in their marriage, like good for them. Okay, moving on. Myth number 2, love conquers all. Love conquers all. That is a lie. Love does not conquer all. It doesn't matter how much you love a person. Love cannot fix everything. There are just some things in marriage that cannot be fixed with love. Any two people can make a happy and successful marriage as long as both folks are ready to grow up, accept responsibility for themselves and their actions, and build the other person up. Being unequally yoked is a recipe for disaster. So that can mean many things. That could be spiritually, materialistically, emotionally, financially, all that stuff. Because if you guys do not have the same goals, or you guys don't have the same whatever, it doesn't matter how much you love each other if you guys are going in different directions or your priorities are different. But right now, my husband is very concerned about me mentally. And right now, I don't really give a crap about myself mentally. I just need to make sure bills are paid. You know what I'm saying? Love isn't going to pay the bills. Love is not paying our mortgage. Love is not paying our utilities. Work is. It's not materialistic to want to provide for your family at all. Fortunately, Sam and I are pretty much on the same page when it comes to materialistic things. Now, I might not have been on board with him buying this house because I wasn't aware of it, and that's something that, you know, even now we're working through. Love does not conquer that because new problems have arisen that love just can't fix. And so that's a huge myth, and I appreciate the comments on that one. You know, by no means am I trying to shame anybody who truly believes these things, because if it works in your marriage, great. But hearing it from my friends is very validating. It's very validating to hear of like, oh, your marriage sucks in that way too? Or, oh, you struggle with that too as a wife or as a mom or as a person? Great. Okay. Number 3, happy wife, happy life. Someone says, happy wife, happy life. Marriage is 100%. There is no 50-50. You are a team, and the building of the relationship should never fall on any one individual. You're in it together. Absolutely. Another person said, once married, you have your husband or your wife, so they are your family now first, before your in-laws or before friends. It doesn't mean you have to cut ties with those previous relationships. It just means that your priority now is you and the person that you married. Biggest misconception, that we would grow together and not grow apart. Also that we were equal partners, and that was false. A lot of these comments just really break my heart. I can really relate to some of them, and then others I cannot. I can relate to them in my previous marriage, absolutely, but not in this marriage. Marriage shouldn't be work. Marriage should be fun all the time, just like when you were dating. Nope. Marriage is work that you both have to work at. This person actually agrees with the don't go to bed angry. Keep arguments and disagreements away from children, but most importantly, make time for the two of you. God first, spouse second, kids third. It is really important that you do still date your spouse. It's just different. It's just different. The excitement isn't the same because now you know who, you know, you put up this front when you're dating. You put the best version of yourself out there for the other person to be wooed and, you know, whatever by Although Sam never pretended to be anybody but himself. I just had different expectations and standards back then. And that's not a dig or anything, right, honey?
Right.
Okay. I was a much different person too. You know, I was not who I thought I was when we got married. When it says keep arguments and disagreements away from your children, I do agree with that to a certain extent. I don't think you need to argue in front of your children. No fighting and things like that. That has definitely been a negative aspect in our marriage. I can't blame bipolar solely for that, although it is a huge contributor, because I will blow up out of nowhere and have no idea where it came from. Even on medication and with therapy, I still had those moments. And actually, since I've not been on medication, I think I've had far less blow-ups. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
What I think is important is if you disagree in front of your children, you also need to make sure you resolve those issues in front of your children. Because what is not helpful is when my kids hear an argument with me and my husband in the kitchen, and we go downstairs to finish the argument, and then we come back up an hour later all lovey-dovey. What the heck, man? How confusing is that to my kids? They don't ever hear the resolution to the problem. And I think that's what's really important. I think it's very healthy to disagree in front of your kids, but also come together and you can either agree to disagree or fix it, but do it in a loving, constructive way in front of your children so that they know how to deal with conflict as well in future relationships, whether it's with a spouse or a friend, a coworker, whatever, to figure out resolution. 5, intimacy. You can have sex whenever you want. This is one thing that I really struggle with. You know, TMI, I think it's just goes with the bipolar. This is going in 2 different ways. The first way I'm going to talk about is mainly with me. Hypersexuality goes with bipolar disorder. And that is, I have a much higher libido than my husband. I actually thought, hey, I'm ready and willing whenever. And my husband wasn't that way at all. Like, he's willing, but not just whenever I want to. Physiological things that have to happen for a man for things to happen. Whereas women, it's mostly mental and emotional connection. I'm kind of not that way. I'm not that way at all. I'm always ready to go whenever. Sorry, mom and dad, nothing you really want to hear. But that is a definite misconception, is sometimes when we get married, ourselves or our spouse have this expectation of now we can have sex whenever we want, we can be intimate whenever we want. There are different levels of intimacy and things like that. That has been a struggle for me because a lot of times I equate intimacy to acceptance, love. So I guess there is some sort of emotional tie. And when I get rejected, of like, not right now, or I'm too tired, or I can't, I just take medication. He's on Adderall, and so that inhibits the ability for, you know, fun time to happen. I can't take it so personally, but I do. I take it as a major rejection that I'm unwanted. I don't know what it's like to be on the other side, unfortunately, so I can't really relate to this on that aspect because the majority of the women are the ones who don't have the higher libido. I actually don't know because I've never been there. It kind of stinks for me because it's like, well, I'd rather be able to say, not tonight, honey, I have a headache. But anyways, the second part of the intimacy thing is consent. You should never feel forced to do something that you are not comfortable with. I didn't know that you could be raped in a marriage. I didn't know until well into this marriage and seeing a therapist. And not because of this marriage, not at all. This has never been a threat in that way, but that I was well into this marriage that I even knew rape in marriage was a thing. Please seek help if that is an issue, that you both go to counseling. There's that respect that is lacking in that area, that you think that person is property. That was a huge thing in my previous relationship, is I wasn't a spouse, I was his property. And he could do what he wanted with me, and he made that clear. So consent is actually something that we taught while we were having the sex talk with our kids. Of like, if you don't feel comfortable doing something, then you don't. Ever. Don't ever feel coerced or forced to do something you don't feel comfortable with. On the other side, do not ever force somebody to do something they're not comfortable with, and don't ever force yourself on that person. That's very important to us. It teaches that we own our body. Person said, intimacy isn't guaranteed. Regardless of being married, consent is still very important. If your partner is uncomfortable, then stop. Communication is incredibly lucrative to ensure you're not crossing personal boundaries, and it is okay to set boundaries with your spouse. Absolutely. Absolutely. Not only is it important, it is probably the most important, is to set boundaries with your spouse in all aspects of your marriage. Thank you for that comment.
Please hang up and try again.
Number 6, divorce isn't an option. Sam, why don't you share your thoughts on this particular thing, because this kind of goes along with what one of Sam's misconception of marriage was. And why did you think that divorce wasn't an option? What was your view in that?
It wasn't just that it wasn't an option, it was more specifically that it shouldn't be necessary. I know that sometimes divorce is necessary because there are several circumstances where that's the case. But when I was kind of young and naive, I was kind of judgmental also about people that would get divorced when there isn't an obvious problem with it, whether it's like abuse or whatever the case might be, where I thought divorce is only necessary in these certain situations. If a couple was getting divorced, it's because not both of them were fully invested or like fully in love and dedicated, that one of them wasn't fully, and so they just kind of gave up, like it was the easy way out. And so when I was younger, I was just kind of judgmental because I didn't really know much about all the different dynamics of marriage and how sometimes divorce is necessary, even if it's not for extreme reasons. Of all the main myths that I could have thought of plenty of them, but that was the one that I remember kind of thinking the most when I was younger.
We have had many conversations when we have been on the brink of divorce, when I have filed for divorce. Again, this is not during my dirty laundry. Like, we feel like the more transparent we are, and by no means are we like a model marriage or a model couple by any means. It's just because we have stuck by each other through probably some of the most hardest things to survive in marriage, let alone life. We've had some very point blank conversations of like, you know what, this just isn't working out. It's not because we didn't love each other. It's not because we gave up on each other. It's because we tried everything and things still weren't aligned. They still weren't working. And so we were both in agreement of like, yeah, we probably should. It would be the best thing for the kids because there wouldn't be so much tension and anger and hurt that they feel on a regular basis, that they could see both of their parents happy, even if it meant we weren't with each other. And then we talked about, why don't we do a trial of separation, or, figure our crap out and then come back together. That was like a pretty recent conversation. And this deployment coming up is actually a huge blessing in disguise. A lot of people have reached out to me saying, you're so sorry, and we're elated. Of course, we don't want him to be away from us for a long time, but it is blessing our lives in ways that are completely unseen, but that we feel. He is his best self when he can solely focus on him. And he comes home so much healthier and so much more himself, his true, authentic self, when he came home from deployment. He was physically healthier, mentally healthier, we were financially healthier, and we really thrived because we had to rely solely on ourselves. It forced us to do things that we should have been doing when he was here, but because he was here, it's like, well, we should be able to rely on daddy too. And that sometimes is just too much undue pressure that's not necessary. So now it's kind of like we get to have a reset of our marriage, which is really exciting. We get to see each other at least once a week. So there are so many benefits to that. It's just a matter of getting him out of here. We're just waiting on the orders. So when I recorded that video, I actually recorded that back in December, as you could tell, because there were Christmas tree up and all that stuff. My video that I sang because we were getting ready for the deployment. But anyway, we have a couple comments. This person said, divorce, while not the option to everything, should always be an option. So that was the misconception, is divorce is not an option. Sam just agreed with that. That was his too. You do not have to stay and work it out when there is abuse present, and it doesn't make you any less worthy to leave a relationship that is killing you. This other person commented, marriage is not for everyone. It will not solve your problems. And I think a lot of times we forget that marriage is not going to be for everyone. Some people will get married, divorced, and then never remarry because maybe they realize that their value system doesn't include needing another person in their life. And that's the reality for some people. There are other people who would love to be married and marriage just hasn't worked out for them due to no fault of their own.
The number you have dialed has been changed.
Number 7, your spouse is responsible for making you feel better, making you happy. It is not your spouse's job to make you happy with your life. But if you're having a terrible day, you're in an awful mood, and they can make you smile, that's someone worth having in your life. I 100% agree with that. It took me 13 years into our marriage, well, 14 into our relationship, 13 into our marriage, to realize my happiness is not my husband's responsibility. For years, he would say things like I would be really upset. And it's like, gosh, Sam, you make me so mad. And he's like, actually, I can't make you anything. And that would just, I would like be seething because I'd be so angry with that statement of like, what do you mean? Yeah, you do make me angry because your actions are making me feel this way. Being offended is a choice. You know, I hate that because it's true. Being offended is a choice. You can choose to not be offended. As much as you think it's not true, it kind of goes the same way with other emotions. Being angry at my husband, he can't make me feel that. It is a natural thing that happens, but I can choose what I do with it. So I hate that the responsibility for my emotions is on me. I hate that so much because I don't have a lot of control or say over my emotions with the bipolar. I don't get to pick and choose when those emotions come up or when things happen. And so I do put it on my husband to control the triggers. Because if he knows something's going to make me mad, or it's going to hurt my feelings, or if it's going to cause me to feel a certain way, why would he do it? And so that's why I really struggle with this. It is not your spouse's job to make you happy, but it's also not his job to make me sad or mad. And yet somehow that happens. So, I know. And the reality is, it's only, I have to choose to not let whatever emotions is overtaking me at that moment, because something else I've had to realize is that feelings are not forever. Sometimes they feel like they are, but they are not forever. Feelings come and go. Unfortunately, sometimes for me, they stay a whole lot longer than I'd like them to be. And sometimes they go away, and then a thought or an action or a word or a smell triggers that, which is very typical for all human beings. But it is not my husband's responsibility to make me happy. And I think that's a huge misconception. Is once we're married, you know, that's a guarantee that we'll make each other happy, and that is not true. And that actually that leads into number 8, the final misconception or myth. Once we're married, then I know that my husband will XYZ. Once we're married, then I know that I'll become the perfect housewife, and I know that I'll be motivated to get into shape so I can bear the children, or that I will have a best friend, that I won't be alone. Sometimes people are lonelier in their marriage than they were before they got married. And that was actually a really sad comment that I saw, but it's very real. And it's not uncommon to feel lonely in a marriage. How do you fix that? I don't know, other than communicating with your spouse in hopes that that could be something that could be worked on. Some comments, there were some really good comments in regards to this. We all have givens going into marriage. I didn't know they were givens because, well, in my mind, it was a given. Now I know we all assume who is going to do what around the house, who arranges dates and childcare. We have these assumptions about finances and parenting, but nothing is a given. You both come from different backgrounds and have different expectations going into marriage. Not addressing these things can create years of resentment. Be okay with having that conversation and making the request. Talk about what your givens are and talk about what you are and are not willing to negotiate. It will save you a lot of time and energy in the long run. Yes. Another comment, which is all of these, I am just so wowed by all of these amazing comments because it's coming from experience. These are coming from people who have experienced these things. They're not just what they read in a book or what they heard their therapist say, or, you know, a news article in Elle magazine or Vogue.
I guess it doesn't surprise me, but it almost catches me off guard, even though it's not a surprise, but that these comments come from such a wide range of our friends who are newlyweds of a couple years to old friends of ours that
been married for 40.
That now have grandkids and married for over 40 years and now they have grandkids and stuff. And so for a couple of those comments to be so like heavy and talk about some heavy stuff to come from family members of ours or friends of ours that are newlyweds that we think are so happy.
And it's not a judgment call by any means. It's not
yeah.
coming from judgment. It's just like, wow.
It doesn't make us think, oh, their marriage is in trouble.
Yeah, not at all. No, it just makes us feel like, wow, we're normal. Yes. And marriage sucks, but marriage is also amazing. Yes. And I think that's just what it comes down to, is marriage sucks and marriage is amazing. And sometimes marriage is boring, and that's what I'm shooting for. I'm shooting for boring. Boring is good. This person said, I think that people have a checklist of things that their spouse is supposed to do in the way that they see other spouses doing those things. And if they aren't meeting that expectation, it means that something is wrong in the marriage or that they're flawed. But that isn't true. There are things where that is important enough, but I find that there are a lot of little things that I thought my husband was always supposed to do, and I've learned to speak up when it really is important and let the rest go. God knows I have probably not fully lived up to his expectations either, but we love each other and have respect for each other. And that is so important when we think about expectations. So I feel like this last one kind of encompasses everything, all of the myths combined, because it really does come down to expectations. Now, I am of a certain faith, and I didn't want to talk about this because it is very personal. I don't like to talk about religion or politics or anything like that on my channel. I try to steer clear of that. But I will say, I feel like there is this common theme when it comes to expectation, that we will have our happily ever after because we did X, Y, and Z. That is how I was. Now, Sam and I eloped. We went to Las Vegas and eloped because I already had the perfect wedding with my ex-husband, and I didn't need to recreate that. We decided to save a lot of money and time and headache and planning just to elope. And then later on, we were sealed in the temple. And with this sealing, I felt like, okay, now that I've been through the temple and I'm sealed to my husband, because this is how I was taught, if you married an RM, which means return missionary, and get married in the temple, your life will be easier. And that is such an unfair expectation to put on very young minds. And it's very unrealistic. So when it comes to expectation, I think the best thing that has happened in our marriage is just communication of things that we expect. Now, because I'm a crazy loony bin, my husband has kind of had to deal with a lot of changes in the dynamic of our marriage. So what was once priority important at the beginning of our marriage shifted from needing him emotionally to strengthen me. And now here we are, and it's like, nope, I don't need you emotionally. I just need you to pay the bills, you know, and that's kind of where we are right now. I'll be 100% transparent about that because our needs do change and marriage evolves. And the thing that I will say is no matter what, our love has always stayed constant. And love does not conquer all, but it sure helps because you're more willing to see past the flaws. Gosh, this is going to be ridiculous. This is so stupid and so long. You know, I talk about how I have to put up a lot of crap with this guy because this guy is very, very flawed, but he puts up with a lot of my flaws. And something very sad is that how often I might say no one else would put up with this crap. But the truth is, I don't know how many men would put up with my crap. You know, I don't know how many people would stick around with hospitalizations and suicide attempts and being able to be who I need to be for other people, but also for myself. And regardless, he has always supported me in that way. And now he's sacrificing time away from his family to provide for us. And I'm really grateful for that. And for anybody who might say, well, that's his job. Yeah, it is, but it doesn't make it any easier. It's kind of like the same thing of like when people don't really have like, I don't want sympathy for when he deploys, but like when people are like, but you signed up for that in the military. It's like, you don't really know what you signed up for till you're going through it, is what it comes down to it. You don't know until you live it.
Very true about marriage, too.
And it's, yeah, exactly. It's very true about marriage. And so with that, I leave you that with these myths and misconceptions, there are also some pretty tried and true hard facts that come with marriage. and is that if you are both working for the same goal, happiness is possible. But you can't rely on the other person for that happiness. You have to find it yourself and make it for yourself, so that you could be your best self for you, but also for the one you love the most. And that is that stinky man in there who I adore. Thank you so much for watching. And let me know down in the comments if you have dealt with some of the same myths and conceptions, you know, what your worst marriage advice was that was given. I probably should spin the wheel, shouldn't I? So you know what our next video is. Uno momento. Here we go, it's time to spin the wheel. So our choices are motherhood, makeup, mental health. Let's see what we got going this time. Well, it's definitely not that one. Or maybe that should be that one because it fell off. Mental health, nothing. All right, we got makeup. That's what fell off. Hey-o. I will see you back here next Monday with a brand new makeup video. Be sure to watch it because I think you're going to really love it. Because not only is there going to be makeup involved, but there might be a little music, if you know what I'm talking about. All right, stay tuned. I love you all, and thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to take care of each other and yourselves. Till next time, see ya, bye! Oh, there's the man of the hour.
Oh.
You're okay. Okay. It's worthy to... sorry. Fans. This is what my husband accomplished while I was busy talking and reading all of your comments. So, way to go, honey. Way to go. Sorry, that's our... Anyway. So, she's not laughing at what I just said. She's laughing because she's watching her anime. Just ignore it. That down. All this to go. There you are, peekaboo. I'm just kidding. And while we were busy discussing marriage, let me show you what my husband was busy doing. A dog. We're all a little special here. All right, there you go. All right, so can we not show the pad and the shout cleaner?
I know, I was trying to get close.
Shit.
I know.
This house.
That's why I was trying
We're
to get
literally
close
cleaning
to it.
today like we are moving. Responsible. Okay, let me try that again. There's gonna be a lot of editing in this video.